Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. Today is September 16th, and it is Tuesday, not Wednesday. I don't know why I thought it was Wednesday. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well on this wonderful Tuesday. Hopefully, all you guys have had a wonderful week so far. If you didn't see my announcement, sorry for no episode yesterday. I had a terrible migraine. I'm dealing with a lot of elevation sickness and a lot of elevation struggles in general. Definitely going from below sea level to a mile above sea level has had a lot of impacts, but we're making it through. We're trying to adjust, and I'll be all right when it comes to the end of it. So, hopefully, all you guys are doing well. With that being said, if you're new here, please subscribe as we are on our way to 500 subscribers. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we try to hit that by the end of the year. I believe we are at 316 right now. We jumped up quite a bit, which is super cool. So thank you guys all for that. Really appreciated. And outside of that, let's get into the news from today. As it's going to be a long one, we have around 5 pages to talk about. So let's get into it. The first topic we have as we move into the Trump administration segment is 14 animal hospital staffers were taken to the hospital after the FBI decided to use their incinerator to burn crystal meth. 14 staff members at a U.S. animal shelter have been taken to the hospital after the U.S. used an incinerator after the FBI, used an incinerator at the facility to burn 2 pounds of methamphetamines. Staff and around 40 or 75 animals, were evacuated from the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter in Billings, Montana. The building filled with smoke. The incinerator is normally used to dispose of euthanized animals, but local authorities use it and law enforcement use it to burn seized narcotics quite frequently. Uh, you know, uh, I bet this was an experience. That's absolutely for sure. I have no idea what that's like, and I never want to know what it's like to try meth, but I'm sure most of them felt similar as well, and I'm sure it was definitely an interesting experience for them. Drugs like that overall ruin lives and should not be on the streets. So I'm glad that they're disposing of them, but they should have, or the government should have their own facilities for that so they don't put other people at risk like they did here. It can be a huge problem when shit like this happens. In all honesty, if they were going to open up facilities just for that, or open up areas just for that, or places just for that in other government facilities, I would be all for that. Rather than putting people at risk by using local incinerators, have the government get their own in specific areas. In other news, a TikTok deal has been made. A deal has been reached between the Trump administration and China to keep TikTok operational within the United States, announced by the Trump administration officials yesterday morning. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the framework of the agreement had been reached, and Trump will meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Friday to finalize a deal. This is big news and great news, especially for me because I won't be losing my main source of income. There are a few things I worry about, two of those being money, and losing my job. But hopefully this deal goes through. It would not be great if I lost my only source of income as a college student. But I'm glad to see that a deal is being made. Hopefully it doesn't shut down the algorithm like it always seems to does, and puts me in 300 view jail again. But as always, I always make myself out, so I'm sure I'll be fine in the end. In other news, the U.S. has bombed another boat in the Caribbean. The U.S. Navy has struck another boat off of the Venezuelan waters, killing 3 people. This was announced in a Truth Social post by Trump. Trump said, "This morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a second kinetic strike against a positively identified extraordinary violent drug trafficking cartels and narco-terrorists in the South Com area of responsibility. The strike occurred while these confirmed narco-terrorists from Venezuela were in international waters transporting illegal narcotics. They weren't in international waters, by the way. A deadly weapon poisoning America. Headed to the U.S., these extremely violent drug trafficking cartels pose a threat to the U.S. national security, foreign policy, and vital U.S. interests. The strike resulted in 3 male terrorists being killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Be warned, if you are transporting drugs that can kill Americans, we are hunting you. the illicit activities by these cartels have wrought devastating consequences on American communities for decades, killing millions of American citizens no longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So how long are we thinking until it comes out that this boat was civilians as well, just like the last one with 11 people on it? It's absolutely crazy that the United States is getting no backlash for this on the world stage. I mean, we are literally in another country's waters blowing up their boats. Like, come on, dude. For one, that's like an act of war, and we shouldn't be doing that in the first place. But also, what happened to no more new wars? How many times are we going to have to bring up the fact that Trump said, no more new wars, yet he's starting new wars? Like, what is going on here, dude? This isn't about drug cartels. We all know that at this point. It's about oil, and it's about, American dominance and, keeping the strength of the American empire, if you will, which has kind of been on its way out as the rise of China, even though Trump is setting China themselves up for success. Like, he is his own biggest enemy and his own biggest hypocrite. Truly, he really is. In other news, Trump claims that there were 300 million drug-related deaths in 2024. Trump has claimed that 300 million people died last year from drugs, despite the worldwide number only being 62 million. Trump was questioned on his strikes against Venezuelan boats. In response, Trump said, "No, what's illegal are the drugs that were on the boat and the drugs that were being sent into our country." He added, "And the fact that 300 million people died last year from drugs, that's what's illegal." So I guess the entire country of the United States died last year. I mean, that's kind of crazy, but hey, I don't remember having a funeral, but whatever. Anyways, on a more serious note, I don't know how he comes up with these numbers. Like, there are less than 350 million people living in the United States currently. It would be insane if 300 million people in the world just up and died. Like, that takes us down from nearing 8 billion to going back into the 7 billion range. Like, that would be genuinely insane if that happened. Sometimes I really just wonder if he just says shit without knowing any information on it. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he did. In fact, that would be not surprising and prove a lot. But it is just crazy that the president of the United States is going around and saying shit like this. Like, it is direct proof that he is so uneducated. We're going to take a sip of water real quick. Okay. In other news, Trump is spending thousands on propaganda posters. The Trump administration has spent at least $56,000 on Orwellian banners for government buildings. The banners feature faces of Trump along with other presidents with the slogan "America's Workers First." This is something we talked about when the posters were hung. Sorry. Full costs are yet to be determined, and could be even higher. Where is Doge when you need them, am I right? Truly, this is a waste of taxpayer dollars. Like, they could at least put accurate slogans on them, like, robbing taxpayers since day one, or fucking over the American people since January 20th. Like, there are more accurate things to put on there if we really wanted to be accurate. That would be a proper use of taxpayer dollars right there, if you ask me, rather than saying that they were helping America's workers first, when they have only made it harder for the working class in America to live and to buy things and to function and to support themselves and their families. Really counterintuitive with that one, if you will. In other news, the Trump administration is starting to remove signs on exhibits about slavery in national parks. The Trump administration's attack on U.S. history continues as the administration has ordered the removal of signs and exhibits in national parks related to the history of slavery in national parks in the United States. This includes photographs of an enslaved man with scars all over his back, known as the scourged back photo. But it's not just that, as they removed information at the Harpers Ferry National Park in West Virginia on slavery at the park, where armed slave revolts took place as well. And they have also removed, or staff at the George Washington House have been told that they must remove information on George Washington's famous slave plantation because it didn't comply with the Trump administration's policy. I really feel bad for the future high school not future. I don't know why I said that. That's not a word. The future high school AP history classes in like 15 years. I really do. The units on the whole of the whitewashing of American history is going to be long as fuck. Like, that is going to be a textbook in itself. Overall, history classes in this country are going to change massively, after this administration. I guarantee you that much. But, as much as it sucks that we have to live through this today, in the end of it, it will all be worth it for future generations. And I do not envy the amount of information high schoolers and so many other people will have to consume all at once, just to learn about the history and the terrible history of our country. In other news, Trump has suggested the Department of Justice should, in fact, go after reporters. The Trump administration will now be targeting hate speech, according to Pam Bondi. They're saying that there was a difference between free speech and hate speech. Bondi said that the Justice Department will absolutely target you, go after you if you're targeting anyone with hate speech, anyone, and that's across the aisle. Every day, I'm going to be honest, my worries grow more and more. I love my country. I really do. I'm proud to be an American, and I'm especially proud to be a Californian. But, I cannot stand for this bullshit. Every day, it's another attack. It's another lie. It's another piece of crap. Another situation where my life and thousands, millions of others, could be at risk. And every day, I have to consider more and more. Is it safe for me to live in the United States right now? Which is crazy to think about in the year of 2025. But in all honesty, it's true. There are so many people in history who have had goals and aspirations just like me to do genuine good and to genuinely help the people within their country who have been taken out or taken down. And I don't want to end up like that, in all honesty. I want to achieve my goals. I want to be successful, and I want to help people. That's something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. I've always wanted to help people, and I'm not going anywhere. I can tell you that much. I'm going to continue to help people, continue to bring news, continue to speak out, because this is bullshit. This entire administration is bullshit. But there's always, that voice of caution that I've had in my mind since I was a very little kid that causes me to worry. And I really don't want to be the one time where I don't trust my gut to be my last. But who gives a fuck at this point? Someone's got to stick around and fight for the people who can't fight for themselves. And I'm going to do that. I do not care. I will not back down. They can they can drag me to the grave, if you will, and I will continue to speak for what's right, because nobody should have to, go to a concentration camp. Nobody should have to die. Nobody should have to die to gun violence at that. Nobody should have to be impacted so horribly as this administration is doing day after day. And it is important that not only me, but so many people continue to speak out. And that is why I will continue to speak out, and I will continue to fight for the people that I care about and the people that I believe in. In other news, talking about Charlie Kirk, because I still can't escape it, JD Vance hosted the Charlie Kirk Show yesterday. JD Vance has announced that he would be hosting the Charlie Kirk Show yesterday after Kirk was killed last week. Vance announced this in a post on Twitter, saying that he had the honor of hosting the Charlie Kirk Show to pay tribute to his friend. As he kicked off the show, the vice president said in the vice president's office, he said that he was filling in for somebody who could not be filled in for, but he was going to try his best. I'm going to be honest, this is cute. I really think it is. Vance and Kirk have been friends for a while now, and I think this is a nice thing to do for somebody that you were friends with and who is now passed. And this is arguably the proper way to recognize the death of a podcaster. As we all know, I don't like Vance or Kirk. But, if I were to unexpectedly die, I think I'd want my friends to do something similar, if not the same. To not only remember me, but to recognize what I have done. So this is not something I'm going to hate on. I think this is cute. I think it's a nice thing to do. Good for Vance for doing something for his friend. In other news, to shift the, positive sentiment, if you will, Marco Rubio says that he will revoke the visas of foreigners making comments about Charlie Kirk. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has reaffirmed the administration's pledge to deny and revoke visas to foreigners who glorify the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Rubio said on Fox News, "We should not be giving visas to any people who are going to come to the United States and do things like celebrate the murder, the execution, the assassination of a political figure. And if they're already here, we should be revoking their visas. Why would we want to bring people into our country? They're going to engage in negative and destructive behavior." This is a load of bullshit. It's on the same level of stopping people from coming to the United States for having JD Vance memes on their phone. He is literally a podcaster. He is not significant. He really isn't. It makes no sense for him to get all of this love and support. We should have been giving it to Melissa Hordman when she died. And so many other people who have died to political or gun violence. Yet we're giving it to a man who spread hate speech throughout his entire career, which is insane. It really is. He doesn't deserve all the glaze. He doesn't deserve all of the support. And the fact that it is so important to so many people is kind of crazy. It really is. When it doesn't matter to them when children die in schools, when it doesn't matter when political figures on the left are killed. It is hypocrisy at its finest, and so many people still refuse to believe that when they really need to wake up. In other news, Vance has endorsed doxing people who make comments about Charlie Kirk, kind of shifting it up. JD Vance has endorsed the max doxing campaign by MAGA being used to intimidate and harass people who did not sufficiently mourn Charlie Kirk. Vance said on Kirk's podcast that people who see someone celebrating Charlie's murder should call them out, adding, "Hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility, and there is no civility in the celebration of a political assassination." This entire situation feels like rage baiting. Like, God forbid I don't get on my hands and knees and worship a fucking podcaster. Like, come on, dude. You have to be kidding me. Vance is one of the worst people within this administration. Something I've said for a long time now, and I will continue to say time and time again because it's the truth. And I really hope more people start to realize that throughout the coming months if they haven't already, because he is going to be a massive problem, especially if Trump kicks the bucket. In other news, the Utah is seeking a death penalty for a Kirk suspect. Tyler Robinson, the killer of Charlie Kirk, has appeared in court today for the first time. The Utah County's Attorney's Office announced that Robinson is being charged with abrogated murder, obstruction of justice, among with other charges. Prosecutors will be seeking the death penalty for Robinson. Anyone who takes another person's life with purposeful intent should be in prison and face full consequences for whatever that may be. Gun violence is a horrible thing, and anyone who commits gun violence needs to be stopped and prosecuted, no matter who it is. I will never stand for gun violence. It is disgusting, and I hope we can get to a point in this country where our children can spend their lives not having to worry about dying in school. I mean, my entire life I had school shooting drills. I had a school shooter come onto campus one time when I was in first grade. He didn't harm anyone. He didn't shoot anything, but still, these are things that children have to worry about day after day, and that shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have first graders, we shouldn't have fourth graders, we shouldn't have fifth graders, we shouldn't have high schoolers, we shouldn't have college students worrying about if they are going to show up to school and not go home at the end of the day. It is insane and terrifying that is an issue, yet so many people believe it isn't when they really should. There is no reason why you should believe that isn't an issue. Children should not have to worry about dying while they sit at their desk and learn math. Anyways, moving on into our other news segments, we have two final topics today to end the episode today. The first one being a black man was hung in a college in Mississippi. This is the second one. Delta State University has found the body of DeMartavion Trey Reed, a 21-year-old student hanging from a tree in the middle of campus on Monday morning. Delta State University police have announced that they believed no foul play was involved in this. University Police Chief Michael Peller said in a statement, "At approximately 7:05 a.m., University police were notified of what happened to the body of a black male hanging from a tree at Central Campus near the DSU pickleball course. Officers claimed that this was self-done and there was no injuries on the man's body." Justice for Trey Reed, absolutely. Nobody is talking about this one. We really should be. So many college students struggle with mental health, especially men who refuse to get the help that they need when they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. If this was self-inflicted, we need to discuss the ongoing mental health crisis for all men within the United States. I mean, let's be real. Nobody should have to sit alone and suffer. It's not cool to just bottle things up. You should talk to the people who care about you because they want to help you. If you are struggling, talk to someone. As Robin Williams once said before he unfortunately passed away, suicide is a permanent fix to a temporary problem, and nobody should act permanently for something that's just temporary. Anyways, moving on into the final topic tonight, a judge has thrown out terror charges for Luigi Mangione. A New York judge has thrown out the terrorist charges against Luigi Mangione, rejecting a theory that he killed the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, to invoke terror. Judge Gregory Caro kept the other charges in place, including the second-degree murder count, but this spares Mangione from a possible life sentence without parole, which is a huge win for Mangione and his legal team. Judge Caro wrote, "There was no evidence showing Mangione Mangione's goal was to intimidate and coerce the civilian population." It's kind of crazy that this happened in December of last year. It really feels like yesterday when it happened, and it's almost going to be a year since it happened pretty soon. I think we can all realize that, this entire situation was an act of revenge. I mean, that's kind of obvious. Was it warranted? Maybe, maybe not. But fuck healthcare CEOs anyways. They are some of the worst people in the world. And if anyone's going to die of gun violence, it's the people who take advantage of the American people and the American health system. Once again, don't condone gun violence. Nobody should have to die from guns. But as Trump says, when it comes to healthcare CEOs, I could care less. With that being said, though, thank you all so much for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. 21 minutes. It's been a while since we've had an episode this long, but hey, I know you guys don't mind having longer content every once in a while. Outside of that, though, hopefully all you guys are doing well. If you're new here, please subscribe. As mentioned, we are on our way to 500 subscribers, and all the support would be greatly appreciated as we try to reach that goal, hopefully maybe by the end of the year. Maybe, we're less than 200 subscribers away, so I think it's possible. I really do. I have faith. So outside of that, though, thank you all so much for watching this episode. Also, if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing. All funds go to me. They help me pay for the things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of that. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support you guys leave on this episode and all the people who continue to watch day after day. You guys are goated. You guys are legendary. Thank you all so much, and I will see you all in the next